the great Don Trump Jr. There he is. How you doing, man?
I'm doing okay, buddy. I mean, as an American, I'm not doing so great.
Yeah.
What's going on is a fucking disgrace is what it is.
It's one of those situations, Don. It's one of these situations where you don't want to be able to say, I knew this was going to happen. I told you so, because Americans' lives are being lost.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard 12 to 14, soldiers. By the way, that's more than all of 2020 combined. And under my father, I mean, Afghanistan for Americans was less violent than Chicago on an average weekend.
Absolutely, no lie.
And but Joe Biden wanted to take ownership of the withdrawal. And again, I'm not saying we should stay in Afghanistan forever, but we had conditions. The Taliban knew that if they messed with Trump, they were going to get blown up. Joe Biden wanted to make it his own, so he delayed it by months to get him into the fighting season. So now, instead of being trapped in caves, getting through a rough winter, they're just ready to go fight and have some fun and do what they do. No conditions. Move it to September 11th. He wanted the photo op. It's like Kamala Harris. They go to the border, not near the border, but at a distance, like we're somewhere within 1,000 miles of the border. We get the photo op. So he wanted credit for it. He got rid of the conditions. He exudes weakness on the world stage, and our enemies, they see it, Anthony. The freaking British Parliament, the UK Parliament, held a U.S. president in contempt because he didn't even tell them. He didn't even tell them. He didn't even let them know. And then, by the way, after he did it, he didn't even pick up the phone to call them. He couldn't be reached for 36 hours. The guy's on vacation as the world burns. Kamala Harris, nowhere to be found. She went to the other Saigon 4 days later.
Yeah.
The press secretary says, I'll be back in a week. Like, when you live and function in the big boy world, like, when shit goes down at your job, you get your ass into the goddamn office and go to work. Like, they can't even fathom it.
The work ethic,
they can't even.
The thing is, your dad's work ethic was insane. The guy, and still is, he's a madman. He is a working guy. And as the president, you have never seen, and I don't think will ever see, a guy that was that dedicated to the job. And something else that you just brought up, the way he would negotiate was through a position of ultimate strength. You heard him so many times catch flack from the left for saying, why is he threatening our allies, or why is he threatening this? He's going to start a war. Meanwhile, he evaded wars by negotiating from a position of strength. They knew, the Taliban knew, if anything happened to Americans during the withdrawal, there would be instant repercussions. And you think they thought anything of Joe Biden, that they had to adhere to anything he says?
No, not even a little bit. And that's the difference. And by the way, it's not just, obviously, like, number one is our soldiers and the Americans left stranded. But imagine, Anthony, for a second, imagine the media outrage if Trump abandoned tens of thousands of Americans behind terrorist enemy lines. Like, I mean, he's even lost some of the left-wing media. I have to give him a little bit of credit. But if it was Trump, all of right-wing media, left-wing media wouldn't even be able to function. They'd be, the aneurysms would be so plentiful that you'd actually solve the left-wing media problem. But and they're like, well, they're trying to trend it on Twitter like Joe's doing the right thing. Joe wanted to make it his own. He wanted the photo op, so he changed it. He got rid of the contingencies. The Taliban has more Black Hawk helicopters than 160 other countries around the world because we left it for them. They took it over in days. We spent $88 billion, not the $2 trillion on the war. I mean, that's minor details. We spent $88 billion training the Afghan army, and they were like, you know what? Forget it.
They just
$88
bolted.
billion. Like, for these guys, it's funny money. We're mortgaging our children's future to the hilt. And you know who's laughing their ass off? China. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
Russia is too. But honestly, compared to China, that's like not even a threat.
Yep, always standing on the side.
We spent $2 trillion over 20 years, countless lives, countless deaths. Now our allies look at us like weaklings. If you're in Taiwan, you think, is America going to step up for us when the Chinese roll in the tanks? Nope. Hell no. Our allies are going to abandon us, as they should, because we've shown nothing but weakness. We spent $2 trillion there, and China came in and said, hey, guess what? Congratulations. We're going to sign a deal for $3 trillion worth of rare earth minerals that are in the ground. Like, So we're -2. They're going to be +3. And guess what happens? If the Taliban messes with one of the Chinese minds, they're dead.
Yes.
They'll kill them. They'll kill their whole families. And you know what will happen?
And they know that.
Nothing. They won't mess with them because they know not to fuck with them.
That's the
this
biggest
is not
thing.
rocket science.
Why?
But our bureaucrats can't figure this stuff out, Anthony.
Don, well, let me tell you, when you have a country that is filled with people that they don't understand how to act as a civilized nation. These Taliban, ISIS, they don't understand wokeness. They don't understand, hey, I love the threats from Pelosi and the lot. You better treat the women and children the right way. Or what? Or what? Yeah. What are you going to do?
But Anthony, they're laughing at us about it. I mean, they called out Facebook.
Yes.
I mean, you guys are calling us an oppressive regime, but like you don't let people speak their mind. You're censoring. I mean, they called out Zuckerberg and Facebook. You know, they said that in a press conference, because they gave a press conference that it seems that our president is not capable of doing, meaning he can get up there and he can stumble through. I mean, I was like, just turn the teleprompter around, Joe. Like, let us read whatever someone wrote for you, because like,
it doesn't matter, right?
It. Then he turns his back and runs before taking any. The Taliban is taking questions. And Joe Biden is not. But you're right about the woke shit, because they're pushing it. And guess, you know who else is pushing it? China. Because they know, like, it's breaking up our country. So they say, well, that's not very inclusive. They're like, it's like me trolling. It'd be like if you gave me, like, the White House Twitter account right now and, like, to troll ourselves. Like, the Chinese are doing that because they're like, oh, well, that's not very woke. That seems kind of racist. And we're like, oh, my God, the China's saying it. I'm like, this is a regime that's committing genocide to Uyghur Muslims. We have no commentary on that. Hollywood has no commentary on it because they want to sell their films there. The NBA, that has so much to say about how oppressive it is to live in America, has nothing to say because they want to sell merch and or make sneakers over in China. So they're using wokeness not because they believe in it. They think it's bullshit, just like you and I think it's bullshit. But they're using it to hurt us by throwing it back in our faces.
Don, these are weapons.
And they've done this before wokeness existed.
Yeah.
I mean, they used to do this all the time. Well, America, that's kind of hypocritical of you. I'm like, they're at the UN saying these sort of things. They're using our nonsense against us. We're buying into it and like changing the way we do things on a geopolitical scale to accommodate that. They're trolling us, and they don't do any of it. They wouldn't even think about it because they know it's asinine.
The weaponry of warfare from years ago, especially when you involve superpowers, was, I think people still have this notion. You shoot missiles, you'll get planes and bombs and troops. We are at war with China. Their weaponry has been, and no one's going to tell me different, that the COVID being released wasn't some way to screw the entire world up. They're the only ones that seem to have done well during the whole COVID thing. And
well, you're not even allowed to talk about that, right?
You can't even talk about it.
By the way, there was never a time, Anthony, where it wasn't the most plausible thing that it leaked from the lab, right? Like, there's literally, and by the way, now you weren't allowed to even mention it as a possibility. So you are to believe, Anthony, that it came from 3 feet outside of the lab.
Right.
That studies the freaking disease that we're talking about. Not from the lab, but 2 feet outside. You know, the wet market pictures. Look at the wet market pictures. I go, the problem is I heard they were from Indonesia. And then you take it one step further just now, which you still get canceled for, but you're 100. Like, is it not also plausible that maybe China did it on purpose?
Yeah.
I'm not saying they did, but like, who benefits? China, with a 1.4 billion population of people who are aging and who've also gotten a little taste of wealth finally, right?
Right.
Once you give someone that, you can't take it back without revolt. When you have 1.4 billion people, so a disease that grossly disproportionately affects the elderly almost has no effect on who benefits from that? Because let's call it, like, the Chinese don't exactly care. If they lost 100 million people of elderly people that they don't have to take care of, I promise you they don't give a shit.
They don't care. Right.
They don't give a shit. They're thrilled. Okay, now you're not allowed to say that. They wouldn't say it on a world stage, but everyone knows I'm right. Like, you know, if they released it and it happened and it just happened, like, who wins?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. They're in a pretty good spot with all of this.
Between stealing intellectual property, the COVID thing, also what you were just saying before, getting into our heads, dividing the country up. These are weapons just as effective in taking down a government as real warfare is. Actually, more so, because we don't seem to know how to fight that. And we dive deeper into this politically correct nonsense while we're tearing the heart out of the country. And they're launching other attacks like biological or computer
But we do know how to fight it, Anthony. But there's a difference. Like, just like we do know how to get Americans out of Afghanistan, we don't have the will to fight it. We don't have the resolve to fight it. You know, I did a podcast last week with Rob O'Neill, you know, the SEAL who shot Bin Laden.
Love Rob.
He's like, oh, yeah, dude. You know, we'll suit up. We can go get these guys out. You know, the British SAS are doing missions. Yep. They're going to pull out their people and bringing them back in. The French, oh, they're doing it.
Embarrassing.
The Dutch and the Germans are doing it. We're not doing it because we don't have the will. We're worried about being offensive to someone. You know, the Taliban is dictating the terms. He said, hey, we may need a little bit after August 31st, you know, for the photo op. No, you will be met with consequences.
Yeah.
Like, the Taliban is bossing around the United States of America. Like, it's hard to, like, I don't honestly even see, like, other than having a nuclear arsenal, like, are we a serious, like, superpower anymore? Like, do we have any balls on the world stage? Like, does anyone respect us at this point? When the British are sanctioning us, the Chinese are laughing at us. They're taking our nonsense and putting it out there to Taiwan and Hong Kong and all the places where there's still people that would love to have some freedom and saying, see, you think they're going to be there? You better just roll over and let us come in. And they're going to. And that's their mission. And we have generals that, you know, you see the pictures. If you see the side-by-sides of, like, Eisenhower and our generals, the generals today have all this crap all over their show, all these decorations. Guess what? They haven't won a war, minor details. You know, Eisenhower had, like, one little patch. You know.
Yeah.
You know, got it done. These guys, they're so worried about critical race theory. They want to learn about white rage.
Yes,
and,
I know.
I saw that. They want to learn about white rage. No one had even heard of white rage before Miley got up and testified about it. And now the left, white rage, we got to analyze this. Like, it's bullshit. No one had ever even heard of it before this thing. But this is what our generals are focusing on. You saw the Army recruitment video. I did a post on
was that
Instagram.
Ridiculous?
Dude, you know, it started off with a little girl from California with 2 moms. And you then compare that to, like, the Russian military recruitment.
Yeah.
You know, like a badass guy, like, I don't want to mess with that guy.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so different. And then they're like, now we're going to pay for your sex change surgery so you can become whatever you like. Who's the military recruiting? The guys that get ahead in the military now, and this is not from me, this is from, like, guys like Rob, who I know well and have conversations with. You know, the door kickers totally get it.
Yeah.
The guys that get ahead and become the generals, though, aren't the best warfighters. They're the best bureaucrats. So the left has infiltrated our military at the highest level.
Amazing.
You've seen what's going on at the FBI. You know, they're spending more time. If your grandmother was within 1,000 yards or 1,000 miles at this point of Washington, D.C. on January 6th, we'd like to arrest her.
Yeah.
Antifa, no problem. I mean,
they could burn down cities. They burnt down cities.
Yeah, you see the CIA recruitment videos.
Yep.
I have incredible anxiety. I can barely function in society. I'm afraid of getting out of bed in the morning. And I am the front line of defense at the CIA. I'm sitting there watching these things like, holy shit.
How did it happen?
If I am our enemy, I'm like, it's time.
Don, how did this happen so quickly? We were on a roll when your dad was in office. 4 years. We watched when he said, make America great again. Every step of the way, America was getting greater and greater. And we were getting respect on the world stage. The money, the fuel independent. How do you fuck that up in 8 months? How did this happen so quickly?
There's nothing the left won't destroy. I mean, listen, last time I think we spoke, I was talking about my book, Liberal Privilege, and that's it. You know, they've commandeered media, right? So they got all of that. So they only selectively, you know, talk about these things. Like all the stuff about Hunter, the people are, had I known about that, like, had I known, because you had the institutions, you know, the deep state where it's Russian disinformation. I go, if it's Russian disinformation, why are they not even denying it? Like,
right.
If it's disinformation, like, is there when they're like, he lost a third laptop last week, he's on tape with a hooker saying, I'm really worried the Russians have my laptop.
It's literally saying the Russians.
He's saying it. Now, if I took a meeting set up by the DNC, because, hey, that's what you do as a business guy. When someone calls you take meetings, you listen to people, you hear it out, and then you make up your own mind, right? If I do it, I went through 30 hours of congressional testimony. They wanted to try me for treason, a crime punishable by death.
Putin's puppet.
Right? Yeah, that they set up, you know what I mean? But like minor details. Hunter is on tape saying they could have leverage over my dad. They could use it to extract. And then you look at what happens. So Russia gets a pipeline. Yeah. You don't, as America. We cancel that. Right. Russia gets a pipeline. We're going to give NATO billions to defend Germany from the Russians that they're enriching by bringing their pipeline in through them. I mean, you wonder, like, you know, and then you see the decisions. You see the decisions that are being made now. And you say, you know what? You think maybe China is cashing in their Hunter Biden chips? Because, like, who benefits from us making an ass of ourselves on the world stage? Meaning, I don't care how incompetent Joe Biden is. We understand. It's him. We understand the woke left. Like, these are not intelligent people, and we understand. But, like, you could not fathom being this bad. I mean, if you really hated America, it would be hard to be this incompetent that you have to wonder, like, is China back-channeling him and saying, listen, you're just going to walk. You're going to put your tail between your legs and walk. We're going to come in and take those resources. And that's what we're getting in payment for the $1 billion we gave Hunter. Or, you know, we bust out another one of the laptops. Because at this point, I imagine there is not an enemy of ours that doesn't have a Hunter Biden laptop with some other stuff on there. Because any one of the 50 things that I've seen would have been totally disqualifying to me. Or frankly, any other decent individual in America. Hunter Biden, no. He's not political. Oh, really? He's not political? So flying on Air Force Two to sell access to the Bidens, you know, getting $1 billion as a former crackhead. Like, you know, the Chinese do a little bit of diligence, Anthony. You know, it's not like Hunter Biden was like, you know, a Goldman Sachs executive for 20 years. Like, he was a drug addict that went to China and they invested $1 billion with him. Guess what, man? There's an expected return on investment, and it has nothing to do with his abilities to invest the money. It's calling in chips. And honestly, if we're not asking those questions at this point, we've lost our minds. If it was reversed and it was me, this would have been over. Don't forget, we impeached a president. We impeached a president for having a phone call with a Ukrainian president. Yeah, right? Yeah. We're not impeaching a president. We're not even talking about it for leaving thousands of Americans behind terrorist lines. Telling them directly, we're not sure we can protect you. Go to the airport, but we can't help you get there. Actually, don't go to the airport anymore. Yeah. Like, what's going on here?
Beyond,
like, it's a clown show.
It's beyond all reason. You bring up a great point, though, with the distinction between Hunter and the way the media has forgotten about it. They don't even talk about it. And you guys, now I've known you for many years, and your family are amazing. Like, anyone would look at your family and go, wow, these kids are great. They are hard workers. Your sister, the way Ivanka, the way she cultivated a business and speaks so well when she's in front of people.
Are you saying that I don't have Ivanka's poise and elegance?
No. Sorry, Don.
I'm the sledgehammer. You need both.
I hate to tell you, I was an Ivanka fan long before I was a Don Jr. fan. But I think you can understand.
I don't want to know where this one's going.
No, she's a very pretty girl too, of course. But the media treated you guys like a pariah. If it was a different situation, you guys would have been on every magazine cover, especially, oh my God, Melania would have been on the cover of every fashion magazine. And it's enough to let you know that they're lying sacks of shit, the media. They can't get off their agenda and criticize a crackhead that is beholden to some of our worst enemies in the world. If you say it, they'll turn it on you like you're some kind of piece of crap.
Oh my God, he's a private citizen. I'm like, I'm a fucking private citizen. Didn't stop you guys from messing with me. Like, well, you're vocal and I go, yeah, if I could make $1 billion on the side, I'd shut the hell up. Give me $1 billion. I promise you, I'll shut the hell up. Like, it's easy to sell out your country for nothing and be quiet. Like, of course he is. You bring up a great one. Like, the Melania, like Jill. I want to be very clear. Dr. Jill. Dr. Jill.
Dr. Jill. Yes.
Dr. Jill on the cover of Vogue, but Melania is. I mean, she looked like she was wearing my couch from college, from my fraternity house. You know what I mean? Very fashionable. She's known as a great fashion icon, just like Michelle Obama was. And it was the next Camelot. I remember the Michelle Obama one because I saw that. I'm like, really? Like, that's the stretch. But I don't know.
Unbelievable. The agenda-driven nonsense.
It doesn't matter. Like, they can say whatever they want. And that's what I'm hoping. As terrible as everything that's going on right now, and again, I don't want to it's honestly, it's so bad right now in Afghanistan. Like I don't want anyone, I'm not making light of it. Like, no. I just hope that, we're 7 months in, like we got 41 to go. We are no longer energy independent. Inflation is through the roof. You have 2 humanitarian crises because this is actually distracting them from what's going on at the border.
Yeah, the southern border.
Where you have kids in cages with 20% COVID levels. In 700% overcapacity, overflowing. It wasn't a big deal under Obama or Biden.
Yeah.
Under Trump, with reasonable levels of people, that was a huge problem. But you have all of these things, and we have 41 months to go.
Oh my God.
We have 41 months to go, Anthony.
Damage.
We're not even started. So the one thing, and again, this isn't about Afghanistan. It's about everything. I hope that Americans just understand how badly they've been lied to. How bad, the media, remember? We need the adults back in the room. It's like, you know what? I'll take a mean, but also true tweet for some $1.75 gas, some peace in the Middle East, like a non-crisis at the border. Like, I trade that because, again, you can have a mean tweet but still have it be true. But in the coddled world in which we live today, if something's mean but true, you're not even allowed to say it.
You're not allowed.
How do you bring up kids in this kind of environment where you got to protect them from everything, even if it's accurate? So I just hope the American populace wakes up and understands how badly they've been lied to, how badly they've been manipulated. Remember, I mean, these generals are out there testifying in the last 2 weeks. We had no idea. There was not a scenario that we could have envisioned that would have led us to believe that Afghanistan could have fallen in 11 days. Well, then why are you in that job?
Well, then somebody made a big mistake.
To understand, I'm not saying it has to be likely, but you couldn't even fathom. I could fathom it.
Of
I don't
course.
even do this. I know nothing about it. I could fathom it. Be like, you did this. You're pulling out. You see the jumping jack video I put up on Instagram. You spent $88 billion training an army that couldn't do jumping jacks. I don't know. I can see them folding in 11 days. And if you can't, you don't belong in that fucking job.
Right. Absolutely.
But they're still there. And guess what? They'll give them another award for the greatest evacuation in history. Yeah. The problem is they're evacuating, 4.5% of Americans, less than 5% or maybe 6% of Americans, unvetted. They brought in, apparently, I read an article that someone said, 100 of the people are on the ISIS watch list. Of course, we're not watching them, and they're going to send them to red states, so that they can vote for Democrats forever. Yeah. I mean, you see, same with what's going on the border. No, we'll send them to Florida. Why?
Well,
why aren't you sending them to
Florida's
Hollywood?
a red state.
We got to turn it. Now, if you're a Cuban refugee that's actually being shot at by your government, you are not to come to America. You are to stay away because you will not be a blind Democrat voter voting for their communist policies because you've actually lived under communism. Now, if you're here to get a bunch of free shit, we'll let you in. You can check off the box that say you need asylum, whether you just need asylum or you're here for free shit, minor details. But those who actually need asylum, who are being actually persecuted by a government, shot at in the streets, you are not welcome because you're not going to be a permanent Democrat voter. I mean, this is the state of our country. So I just hope, that people who don't want to be involved, they're not political, they don't get involved. I hope they start getting involved and start seeing what's going on. Because if they don't, better. We have no country.
They better. This being right around the 20th anniversary of 9/11 is even more infuriating and sad. I've not never, but it's been a while since I've been this mad and sad at the same time. And I remember 9/11 being both of those things. And I remember wondering what 20 years after would look like, 10 years and then 20 years. I try to think about what 20 years after Pearl Harbor looked like. Were people still paying attention to it? And I'm so aggravated at what we have going on now because it is a kick in the teeth for everyone that spent the last 20 years trying to make up for what happened on 9/11, get some retribution, or make things better. And we're actually right back to square one. How did that
Listen,
happen?
I'd argue we may be worse than that. Now I want to say, our troops, they didn't do that in vain. They kept us safe for 20 years.
For 20 years, right.
We're actually worse than square one in the sense that we've lost our stature on the world stage.
Yeah.
Right. So then, we did this. Listen, New York. I mean, New York right after 9/11, like there wasn't the division. Like people got along.
No.
It was like the greatest, time in New York as people sort of got together and realized that, hey, man, we're still Americans. We're the greatest country in the world. Like, didn't matter left or right, but and even then, I came back and I've always been a conservative and pretty vocal. I could argue my friends who were Democrats, but even true Democrats, I could argue their side of the coin.
Sure. And
do it intelligibly. When I hear the stuff that they're pushing, the 97 genders and all, I'm like, I don't even know what planet they're from anymore, let alone could make an argument with them. And it's but again, you see all the videos of the teachers and the indoctrination and the this, that, the other. It's starting so young. I mean, we literally have to start getting involved on every level, or there is no future for this country. It's certainly not one that we recognize.
It's really refreshing when I see a lot of these local school board meetings and you see these parents getting up and they're pissed and they don't want critical race theory being taught to their kids and they don't want drag queen library reading day and because you know what? We are a silent majority. The real backbone and bulk of Americans are people that work for a living, love their family, want to enjoy life, and it's this small minority of mental patients that are making the noise and making it really seem like America is this woke place. And to see this silent majority finally speaking up is very refreshing. And like you say, I hope it continues and gets stronger.
As do I. But I think what we have to do is we also have to get involved. You're right. Like those the teacher board meetings and stuff like that, where people are finally speaking up. Run for that board.
Right. Yeah.
The crazy activists are actually running for those boards, and they'll appease you at the meeting, and then they do whatever they want. I know about schools in New York that were teaching these subversive curriculums, but they spend an hour a day teaching some of this nonsense, but they pull the paperwork away from the kids at the end of the day, so the parents wouldn't know what they were actually learning. There was no homework in that class. We're just going to indoctrinate you and pull it away. And at some of the best schools in New York, it wasn't just at the public school systems. Those are even more screwed up because of the teachers unions.
Right.
But run for your school boards. If you've had it, don't just sit there and attend, actually get involved. I think you can make so much change getting involved in local government. And again, if you look at local governments around the country, they're totally controlled by the leftists. Get involved, get active. It's not just enough to be vocal anymore. Now we actually have to participate. We have to be out there. Dude, trust me, it's not a great business model to be, a real estate developer from New York and become a conservative activist. But you have no choice.
Yeah.
We have to fight for our country. We have to fight for our children and their futures and our values and our beliefs and our freedom and our Constitution. And if you haven't been watching, all of that is at stake.
Yes.
Look at what they do with the vaccine passports. They are going to pluck away at our freedoms. And there's been a lot of Americans sure, govern me harder, Daddy. Govern me harder. I want it harder, Daddy. It's insane.
I'll never understand the willingness.
We got to fight
people
for this stuff, man. It's ridiculous. And we've had way too many Americans just sort of roll over and, no. Anthony Fauci is a god. I was let's objectively speaking, name one thing he's been right about in 18 months.
No, you could see things. You could see where he's lied to the American people.
He's not a doctor. He's a bureaucrat. He's like the generals. He in the medical community, I've heard from a lot of people, he's a joke.
Yeah.
But he was good at being a bureaucrat. He was very vindictive behind the scenes. So anyone who would challenge him, he'd take out. This guy isn't a winner. I've heard this from plenty of people.
You don't believe the science, Don. You don't believe the science.
Trust the science. I was I don't know. By the time I get done listening to how I have 37 masks on, I'll die of asphyxiation, but like I won't have COVID. It'll be wonderful. Yeah. You know what's really effective at preventing the transmission of COVID is a plastic bag, Anthony.
Yes.
Zip tie it to your head. You won't get COVID. I don't recommend this for the record. But you won't die of COVID. You'll die of something else.
They will call it a COVID-related death, though, if you do die from a plastic bag over your goddamn head.
Oh, yeah. No, if you have COVID and you get hit by a bus, that's a COVID death.
That's a COVID-related death.
But you see the hypocrisy. Just like, look at Cuomo this week, right?
Oh, yeah.
He resigns. Within about 6 hours, they say, hey, guys, there's about 12,000 more deaths in the nursing home scandal that we didn't tell you. It's like, no, we knew about it. Like, I wrote about it in my book last summer. Like, everyone knew, but the media wasn't going to report on it. Not because it wasn't a great story, but because they weren't going to hurt a 2024 hopeful. They know that Biden's probably not running. The guy, come on. The guy can't walk up a flight of stairs. So they're not going to hurt someone that they saw as the future of their party. So they give him a pass on 12,000 additional. Because don't forget, there were plenty of deaths that were counted, but additional deaths from his decision. You know, and it's just disgusting. And that's what we're living in. That's why, again, people have to get involved. You have to seek out alternative news sources. Like, you can't watch CNN and expect to actually learn anything. It's like sort of like the saying, is that true or did you see it on CNN?
Yeah. When I watch some of that fine programming, the gymnastics that people will do to try to blame your dad for anything that's going on right now, the vaccine, I remember them laughing their asses off when your dad said, we're looking at a vaccine by December. Look at this guy. And I wouldn't take that vaccine if Trump's vaccine, like your dad's mixing test tubes together.
Now they're trying to jam it into your forehead.
Right. What is it mixed with bleach? Because, he said drink bleach. And the gymnastics they do to try to blame. And even with Afghanistan, they're trying to say that somehow Donald Trump was responsible for what the debacle that is going on right now. And as we spoke about earlier, your dad wanted the soldiers out as much as the rest of this country did. What are we doing there? No more forever wars. He ran on that. Promises made, promises kept. And then Biden takes it, like you said, wants to own it, wants to tie a pretty bow on it on the anniversary, 9/11. I brought the troops home. And it's a disaster because he's a weak, useless, mentally impaired commander-in-chief.
100%. Again, they ran him not because he was competent, but because they could sell it to people who were on the middle. No, he's a nice guy.
Oh,
we're gonna bring the adults back. He's got a lot of foreign policy experience. Like, how's that working out for you?
Yeah,
no, seriously. I mean, because we got 4 peace deals done in like the Middle East. Like, you're gonna say that he doesn't? He's got foreign policy. Like, name something he's accomplished that's good for America.
Terrible.
He's like China's MVP. Like, they couldn't ask for a better leader.
They own him.
But, of course they do. Like, I want people in Congress to start asking this question because, like I said, like, I don't care how bad you are. This is not about politics. Like, literally, I can't fathom someone seeing this information and continuing to make the decisions the way they're making it unless they're somehow compromised. Like, I can't. I'm not saying he is, but like, God knows there's enough that could be. And you got to start wondering because, like, there's no way, even the most insane leftist in Congress could not or would not screw it up this badly. You got to wonder what's going on behind the scenes because I just can't fathom it.
Before I punch out here, your dad. What are we looking at, man? People are wondering. They're clamoring. He's doing the rallies, and they're popular as ever. I think they're more popular. I think. Because again, people are coming to the realization, like, you know what? Yeah, maybe I didn't love the tone, and I can understand that. Like, but maybe the tone was the tone because he was attacked relentlessly, even when he was right. Like, name something that he was attacked about that, like, 6 months to 2 years later, he wasn't right about. Yeah.
Like my saying was like, hey, the difference between a conspiracy theory and the truth is only about 6 months.
Yeah.
So they would go after him, when you try to put your family in jail, Hunter's fine. Like, and guess what? Yeah, your tone may be a little bit off, but like, look at the results.
And
so again, I think
all we should look at. What is he? Yeah. Is he considering?
I think he's taking it really seriously. I think he's still pissed off about obviously the way that it happened, and I think you can objectively look at it and say, give me a break. Like, you can have statistical abnormalities a little bit. You can't have statistical impossibilities.
No.
All in places that were like, come on,
Nope.
guys. Like, this stuff's been going on for a long time. By the way, they probably cheated in 2016 too. They just didn't cheat enough. They didn't see it coming the same way.
Right. They
so
didn't
they had
expect
4 years to prep.
Yeah.
That's at least my opinion.
Mine too.
I'm not saying it happened.
And a lot of other
people.
people's.
If it did, that probably happened too. I mean, this has been going on for as long as time.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that it's enough for people to wake up, to understand how bad our bureaucrats actually are, to understand the full incompetence of our government, of the leftist agenda, of what's happening. And I hope that people, and again, it's not just about the presidency. Like, I hope they get involved. I hope they throw Nancy Pelosi out on her ass, after the midterms.
Literally.
Get rid of this incompetence.
Yes.
I hope we start pushing some conservative, pro-America values. But we're not going to do that if people sit there and say, oh, well, Don Lemon told me that this is like,
oh, God.
We need to get involved. We need to get informed. We can't do that through the regular sources. And again, the reason I think, and I'd love him to do it again, not because of it's not good for, it's a huge pain in my ass.
No, we saw.
It's a disaster. But because I don't know that there's anyone on the conservative side that actually has the guts to fight. There's a couple guys, they throw out a couple good sound bites every once in a while, but when all of the media channels all of their fire on you, they all break.
Yeah.
Trump is the only guy that 0 F's given. He just goes and fights back. So until we have a bench of guys that has the balls to actually fight the way we need to fight against insurmountable odds, almost, right? Because it's not like we're in a fair fight political ideology-wise. You're up against a $1 trillion media industry, a $1 trillion big tech industry that is literally functioning as the marketing arm of the other side. That's not a level playing field. We got to overcome that. So I think Trump is the only guy that has the guts to fight that way, the ability to fight that way, the innate understanding, and a guy that's done it before.
He's shown it. Yep.
I hope he does it. We'll see. I mean, I certainly know he's truly upset about what's happening to America.
I don't doubt it,
people.
Man. If
he did so much for hardworking Americans, and to watch it all get flushed down the toilet for leftists. Don't forget, if you come across the border as an illegal immigrant, Anthony, with COVID, you can be released into society. But if you're in New York, you can't go to work or a restaurant or the gym without a vaccine passport. As an American citizen, you're a second-class person in your own country compared to illegal immigrants. You literally you feel like it's an episode of The Onion, but it's actually happening in real life. I'm like, come on, I'm waiting for Ashton Kutcher to jump out of a fucking cake and say, we're just kidding. You're just being punked. It's like the Truman Show. You're like, they can't be serious.
Everything's ass backwards, man. Everything is ass backwards. And you're right about your dad, man. He took it. He took all that shit they dealt him for 4 years, and, he smiled and did his job and did it well. And when you see him, tell him I said hi. I've always loved when we had him on the show back in the day, and of course you for many years. Don Jr., thanks so much, man.
Thanks,
I love seeing you out there. I love seeing you on Twitter. It's another voice of reason in a very unreasonable platform. We'll talk to you soon, man. And there's the book, Liberal Privilege, Joe Biden and the Democrats' Defense of the Indefensible. And of course, New York Times bestseller. Thanks again. We'll see you soon, man. Be well.
Be good, buddy. Be well.
There's Don Jr. It's President Trump's son, right? In case you didn't know.